Our projects throughout the country are in crisis as the construction mafia delays deadlines, blocking construction from taking place while demanding 30% of the value of the projects. The Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime has published a report about this type of crime in South Africa. Its author, senior researcher Jenny Irish Kobushiana, joining us now. Jenny, good afternoon, and thank you very much for your time. I mean, it's like it never ends. I mean, one crime after another. I mean, this form of operation is criminal.
Absolutely. I mean, we have identified it as systemic corruption and systematic corruption that is taking place within the construction sector.
Now, just reading an article I saw the other day about the Daily Maverick, based on your research and about these construction mafias, well, I didn't realize that it goes so deep and far and wide, and it's not only contained in various parts, in specific parts of the country.
Yeah, I think it started in 2015, 2016 in KwaZulu-Natal. And I think by 2017, almost the majority of construction sites in the province had been affected by it. But I think one of the things that we've found is where extortion starts to take root in one place, it spreads to other places. So from there, it started to spread to the Eastern Cape, Gauteng, Western Cape, and it's now in virtually all the provinces around the country.
Now, I understand that these organizations or these groups of people present themselves as representing a local business forum, representing a local community. Therefore, they need the support in terms of transformation. But their modus operandi is extortionist.
That's exactly the point, is that they arrive on sites heavily armed and basically say to the people, deal with us or else we will close down your construction site. In some cases, in at least one case, we know of a black small contractor who was actually killed by a local business forum. In other cases, the damage has been extensive, burning vehicles, destroying sites, etc. And even there is definitely, while one understands the need for transformation in all sectors of our business in South Africa. What is happening here is even where contractors have local contractors involved in the project, they have not been spared the wrath of these local business forums.
So even where there are locally based contractors who are included in that project, wherever the local location is, they come on, they demand to be included as well. And how has business been responding? I mean, what's the danger of this, as you say, becoming the normal way of doing business?
You know, I think that when it first started, business responded in a number of ways. First of all, they went to court and tried to get interdicts against some of the people involved in this kind of practices. In other instances, I even spoke to some businesses who said, we armed ourselves in preparation for these guys coming on site, but that didn't work because they had bigger guns than we did. So that didn't work. In other cases, people started to hire private security, but that obviously adds to their costs. There've been a serious number of appeals to government at provincial, national and local level to actually deal with the situation. And I think that what's happening increasingly, and that's why we're not necessarily seeing the violence we saw when it first started, is that many businesses are desperate and they're saying, look, rather than have our site closed down, face the damages, risk to our lives, we just pay the guys. We just pay the guys and we normalize the practice, and it becomes almost a standing item on their budget.
What are your thoughts about how
that becomes very problematic?
Yes, because it's just that line item now that's going to bulge and bulge. It's not a normal way of doing business. What are your thoughts on how this can be resolved? What kind of interventions can be done?
I think our report makes a series of recommendations that cover a broad range of things. First of all, we believe that while there has been a significant amount of comments made by national and provincial governments about the problem with this, the president has made statements about it, the Minister of Finance, that hasn't always translated into on-the-ground responses, particularly from the police. So we would like to see a stronger response from the criminal justice system. We think that there must be a special way in which they investigate this kind of extortion, the way they respond to the extortion. So from the criminal justice perspective, we make a series of recommendations in our report. But we also think that there's a need to build partnerships across the board to deal with this, involving communities, people affected, the businesses, the construction sector, and government, and that would include provincial, national, and local government. And there are examples in other countries, like in Italy, where they've had this kind of extortion happening, where they've launched very successful campaigns. And those campaigns have basically involved both communities and the victims and the police and justice system. And they've had serious successes where they've actually said, we're not going to succumb to this kind of extortion, but they also have provided support to the victims of it. And then I think we need to set up a reporting mechanism where people can feel safe to report when the extortion happens. One of the biggest problems in extortions internationally is that people are often scared to report that extortion. So we're suggesting that there needs to be a hotline where people can safely report that extortion, and that hotline can be used, and that hotline can then be used not only to support the victims of this extortion, but also to begin to analyze how it's taking place and where it is. And then I think finally we're also saying that there are real social and economic factors that feed into this kind of systemic extortion. They create the fertile ground for people to be able to recruit people that are prepared to engage in this kind of extortion, but they also kind of create a fertile ground for people to justify this kind of extortion. So there is also a need to look at a socio-economic approach to dealing with it as well.
Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Jenny Irish-Kobushiane from the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, talking about construction mafias in our country. Still